Overwatch is a game that I've played a little too much of, but when a sequel was announced, it was only natural that I'd be interested in checking it out. And the game was changing pretty significantly. They were adding a bunch of new characters that I was looking forward to trying out, but there was something that intrigued me a little bit more. And that was the changes that they were making to the old characters. Many of the characters were going through pretty significant changes since the game was switching to 5v5 instead of 6v6. And this would mostly affect the tank characters since you were dropping one in order to make the game 5v5. This would drastically change the way tanks were played, and almost all of them got pretty significant changes. My first thought to this was, well, some of the tanks are just not going to be played. And this concern was felt the most for our boy Roadhog. Now, he's always been an interesting tank. He's prioritized more as a damage dealer than doing any actual blocking or protecting the team. But in Overwatch 1, this was fine because you could just have another shield tank and more or less be fine, as the Roadhog player would go off and do his thing, and the other tank could worry about protecting everybody. So I was interested to see if he would even be playable, and since the servers have finally seemed to have stabilized, I've finally been able to play enough to form an opinion on how I think Roadhog is in Overwatch 2. Now, take my opinions with a bit of a grain of salt. I am a console player, so nothing I say will ever represent like what a pro thinks. This is more of like a casual guide to him. And so yeah, now that you all know that I'm a console scrub, I first want to say I absolutely love Roadhog's redesign to his character. I love the way he looks. I think his new design in Overwatch 2 is excellent. I hope that they actually make some new skins based around that default model, maybe recolor it, but seeing as how we have to pay for skins now, I don't think that'll happen, so I'll probably end up just using my favorite skin as default anyways. But on to gameplay now. The changes to Roadhog from Overwatch 1 to Overwatch 2 were his HP being raised from 600 to 700, his self-healing from his Take a Breather ability went up from 300 to 350. Which is very nice in the Heap of Battle. And his ults can be toggled on and off when active.
Double. Triple.
All these changes are all well and good, but I feel that the changes that affected him the most are the changes that happened to the game as a whole. Now, tanks feel much more, well, tanky, I guess, in Overwatch 2. Plus, him having more health is super good for his survivability, which was always something he would sometimes struggle with in high damage comps in Overwatch 1. But something that I think benefits him the most is the game actually being 5v5. Having less tanks means having less shields, which means it is much easier to land your hooks on the preferred targets. There are also way less stuns in the game, and Roadhog being such a big target made it very easy for him to get hit by stuns. I mean, you still have like Sleep Dart and Hack to worry about, but still there's less things to interrupt your abilities, and Roadhog's abilities getting interrupted was sometimes a death sentence for him. So, what do I think of him right now as a character? Is he a good pick? Is he a bad pick? Well, I actually think he is playable. By no means do I think he is a top tier pick, and he's definitely harder to play than in Overwatch 1. However, as I said, the changes to the game makes it a bit easier to do his job, but I feel the better your opponents are, the better off you'll be playing someone else. All in all, I feel Roadhog did not end up in as bad as a spot as I was expecting he would be. And I feel he could be good in poke compositions, where you beat the enemy with a death by 1,000 cuts kind of method. And I feel like he'd be good with characters that are good at long range damage and keeping enemies at bay, with one of your DPS being a flanker. But as I said earlier, the higher skill your opponent is, I feel like you're going to have a harder time, because he is still a very big target. He is still very reliant on getting his hook and getting a pick off. And he is still probably the least mobile tank of all the bunches. And right now, mobility is pretty high value right now in the current meta. Also, only having one tank means protection and shields just all the more valuable, and he doesn't really have any of that, so he still gets outclassed by a majority of the tanks. But still, if you can land your hooks, you can play him pretty effectively. Like, still, a high skill Roadhog is still one of the most dangerous opponents you could play against, so he actually ended up in not as bad as a spot. Like, I was convinced he would just be hands down the worst tank and never get played, but I still see him in some of my games. I play him every now and again, and sometimes I feel like I can do work. But remember, at the end of the day, it is your game. You can play however you see fit. If you know you can pop off as Roadhog and get the kills and carry your team, then once you lock him in and that one guy types in all chat tank diff before the match even starts, you prove him wrong. You carry the team and you hook people off the edge and get that sweet play of the game. But again, that's just me, and that's really about all I have for that. So let me know in the comments what you guys think about Roadhog. If you think he's still good, if he's not good, if you see a Roadhog as your tank, you just instantly leave the game. Just let me know, and thank you for watching, especially if you made it this far into the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you.